Hey there, good afternoon. My name's Dana Demara, and just adjusting my little screen. And welcome to Astrocast. So, this is the November forecast, and there's so much happening. Actually, there's so much happening every day, honestly. So, what I'm going to do in this forecast is just highlight out a few transits for the month of November that I feel are really important for you to know. Now, of course, this is just a general overview, doesn't even potentially mean anything to you. However, somewhere these points that I'm going to talk about will hit your chart. And by hit your chart, I mean line up with or create a transit or aspect with um, the chart that is yours, in particular to you on the day you were born, and that will create a certain energy. That's just the science of astrology. So it's not this like be all, do all, and don't do anything until you get your horoscope read, but slash and it is a blueprint of what's going on in the world. And I think it's important to know. And I don't even want to say what's going on in the world. I'll say what's going on in the cosmos, okay, and how it's kind of showing up in the world right now. So the biggest thing I want to say, I'm going to share my screen in a second, but the biggest thing I want to say is that we have two eclipses coming up. They always travel in pairs. So 99% of the time. So we have a full moon lunar eclipse coming up at the end of November. And then we have a solar eclipse and a new moon coming up at the beginning of December. I also want to prepare you for December 24th, just as a reminder. I know it's not November, but December 24th, we have our third and final square of Saturn and Uranus, which is restrictions meets liberation, right? And I'm smiling because, well, first of all, I just think it's just showing up perfectly in the world. If you think about the way our systems are all shifting and changing and restructuring, and we're being shown truth in so many ways, right? Um, this last square is going to bring about a little bit more change, okay? So it's not like we didn't just rip the Band-Aid off and start new. We've been like consistently shifting and growing all year. And sometimes that shifting and growing is kind of uncomfortable. You'll remember when you were younger and you get growing pains. That's what's happening to the world right now. And it's a little uncomfortable. So the biggest thing I can say, and this really goes with anything, but especially now, is take care of your side of the street. Hone in on your practices, eat your good food, meditate, do your thing so that you can be energetically aligned with what's in all of this for you. So you don't get swept away by the tsunami of other things happening in the world, because it's very easy to do that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I was laughing too because I had wisdom tooth pulled the other day, and I feel like my mouth is kind of frozen on one side, and it just feels funny when I talk. So if I sound funny, that's why. All right, so Astrocast. All right, so here is kind of the aspects I picked out of all of them that I felt were important. And you'll see that Mercury is in a lot of them. Mercury is super active. Mercury is the lower mind. Mercury is our day-to-day. Mercury is just how we think about things. And Mercury is really active this month, this November. And so you can just take a snapshot of that and write those down. There's obviously there's a lot more aspects that happen throughout the month, but these are kind of the ones I picked. So here we go. We have November 1st. November 1st, we've got Mercury trine Jupiter. Now, when Mercury trines Jupiter, it's a beautiful, harmonious sign. So when we have, I can't show you where it is. Well, actually I can. Hold on, I'll show you. So Mercury is down here. I just have to make the screen a little bit smaller. So here's Mercury, and then here's Jupiter. So it's at 22 degrees, which, by the way, is a great number. Okay. 22 is a derivative of multiplication of a master number. So it's really about change. And Mercury trines Jupiter on the 1st. And this is really about turning your direction and your awareness into that which is positive, and that which is affirming, into that which is supporting, not only yourself but the whole. Remember, we had Saturn move into uh, Aquarius after being in Capricorn for so long. And Saturn moving into Aquarius is about humanitarianism. So really forward thinking. And now Jupiter's sitting there too. Pluto won't get there, I think, until next year. So it's going to be a little bit. On November 2nd, we've got Mercury square Pluto. Not as exciting as a transit, but important because it will give you the opportunity to think a little bit deeper. So Pluto's about depth and transformation and really uncovering secrets, right? So if you're kind of doing the work on your own, this is great because you could uncover some maybe some ways of being or doing that aren't serving, and you could change them. But it could also create intense interactions with other people. So just be mindful of that. November 4th is our new moon. So we have this new moon. Let's see if I did. Great. And I have a whole new moon recording on this, but if you'll look to the right, you'll see the moon, the sun, Mars, and Mercury all kind of jumbled up together. And then the moon and the sun are making an exact opposition to Uranus, which is all about change. So I would say go to the new moon recording and check that out if you're interested in seeing what is happening with this new moon. November 10th, turn the page, there we go, November 10th, we've got Mercury conjunct Mars. So, and that is up in the upper right, there, right here, at 7 degrees, okay? So we have Mercury conjunct Mars, and see all that red? And it's also Mercury conjunct Mars, but it's also squaring Saturn. It's really tense. It's like this feeling, like, and the moon's right there too. So it's not an exact square, but it's pretty close, which means the moon and Saturn are almost conjuncting each other, which is sensitivity and the feminine, really rubbing up against Saturn. And then you have Mercury and Mars also rubbing up against each other. So Mercury conjunct Mars, it's good in the sense that it gives you this way to rationally think and mentally kind of project your thoughts out. Things will come through you. Again, but Mars can kind of create trouble. So just be aware of where you're putting your energy, right? You can also create like a sense of like bossiness, like maybe you're or micromanaging, right? Like ask yourself, do I need to tell this person what to do? How is that going to cut? Really just think about, and more than thinking, just feel into like, what is this interaction going to create? Just like you do with yourself, like what is this thought creating for me, right? And then on that same day, so November 10th is kind of a big deal. There's a lot happening. So maybe just stay inside. Just kidding. But Mercury and Mars both square Saturn, which again can be good because it can really favor getting some mental work done, really focusing on the task at hand. So use your energy in that way. Again, if you work in a group with other people, it might create some friction because remember, everybody's feeling that, well, my way, but I want to do it my way. So to some degree, just be mindful again of how you're using that Mars, Mercury, Saturn energy. It's intense. And then once we get past that day, November 15th, the sun is going to square Jupiter. And the sun square Jupiter is like a double-edged sword, as with anything, because all these planets and all these zodiac signs all have a dark and a light. It just depends upon how you look at it and how it's working with your chart. But it can make you feel really confident and exuberant and optimistic and enthusiastic, right? But if you over exaggerate, because Jupiter is the biggest planet, right? And so sometimes Jupiter has a tendency to over exaggerate. It could tend to, over exaggerate. And that's not really good either. So find that balance between like disciplining what you share, disciplining how you do things, finding a sense of balance, feeling gratitude for what's coming your way, for the optimistic outlook. Maybe you're creating abundance for yourself instead of like, oh my God, this is amazing. Just kind of sit with it and feel into it. And then, so that's all on the 10th. Oh, that's the 15th. Sorry, guys, I didn't change the slide. Here's the one for the 15th. I had 3 slides for the 10th, but that's okay. The 19th is the lunar eclipse. So the 19th, we have got a full moon lunar eclipse, and you'll see the sun and the moon are completely opposite one another. You also see that North Node in Gemini is pretty much conjunct the moon. I will have more on this as we progress. Those of you who have North Node Gemini, you will feel this full moon. There will be lots of endings, lots of beginnings. You also see that Mercury is pretty close to the sun. So Mercury is just sitting there, right, cuddled up next to the sun. And so again, I'll do a whole reading for this, for the full moon, but know that this full moon will be a little intense. It's also got the eclipse attached to it. So everything comes into clarity during eclipses. And then on the 20th, Mercury is going to square Jupiter. So, and Mercury, again, just traveling along with the sun, but it's squaring Jupiter, which creates, again, remember, Jupiter is abundance and wealth and wisdom and knowledge, but it also has a tendency to over exaggerate. So just make sure that you're actually using Saturnian energy to be methodical while you kind of make your plans and allow yourself to not just think really big, but also plan really big. Instead of like leaping, make some plans for yourself. And then on the 28th, we have the Sun Conjunct Mercury. Finally, hello, 7 degrees sitting there. Again, it's going to put your focus on thinking, like really thinking through a lot of well, what's next. And this kind of happens, I think, for a lot of people toward the end of a calendar year. We start to think about 2022. We start to, in this case, we start to think about what's next. But technically, you can do this type of thing, every month, every new and full moon, really asking yourself, where do I want to put my focus? And then that way, at the end of a calendar year, you're not thinking super big. You've kind of gone back in time and been like, okay, yeah, look at these. I did these things, and now I want to do this, and now I want to do that. But this is a beautiful month to get kind of clear out things, people, relationships, thought patterns. Get really clear about what you value. I talk about that in the new moon report. Get really clear about what makes you feel comfortable. Like how can you feel comfortable in this life, right? And so those of you who have the mentality of like, I have to work really hard to get what I want, that's like an old paradigm. We're going to just start to let that go. Those of you who think like, if I don't do it by myself, no one can do it as good as me, old paradigm. We want to collaborate. We're moving into wider perspective, collaborations, connections. And so things might start toppling. So don't be at the bottom of that topple. Be in this space of like, oh yes, like I know this, and don't be heavy carrying stuff around. Like start to let stuff go. That's all I have for this forecast. I do want to say one thing. In December, the very beginning of December, the 1st to the 2nd, Neptune goes direct. So we'll have more planets going direct, which is great. And again, if you want to read more about the new moon, go ahead and you can find that on my YouTube channel as well. I'm really grateful that you take the time to listen to these. It's just so fun. I only record them once. I just kind of sit down and bust on through. So if you want more information or you want to see how any of this energy relates to your in particular chart, you can reach out to me on my website at danadamara.com. That's my name. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dana Damara Evolution. So again, thank you so much. Happy November, and I hope to see you soon. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.